Hello and welcome to the final day of regular season spring split action. I've got Emily Rand, I've got Mark Z, I've got Crumbs, all here for a countdown full of high-stakes postseason conversations, spring superlatives, and of course, another edition of According To. Now, speaking of which, as always, I've gathered info from Twitter, and this week we even heard from Aframu, but now I need the opinions of Twitch chat, my friends, to help us answer this question. Which team will win the mid-season showdown? Will it be C9, TSM, Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, Dignitas, or Evil Geniuses? Be sure to let us know in the chat and use the team tri-codes on the screen, and I'll use your answers against the analysts a little later on. Now, we've had a lot of stuff going down during the entirety of this week thus far, so I do want to get some answers from our analysts regarding exactly what we've seen, starting off with the miraculous resurgence of Golden Guardians.
That's right, Golden Guardians is alive. They are showing signs of life. Now, we heard from Niles that picking comfort and champions that can punish mistakes has helped their goal of playing to win. Tower diving level 1 with Colette is something no one expected, and it's sure to give them that confidence boost. Now, critics would argue it was a loss, or it was a win against CLG, but CLG beat Team Liquid and Cloud9 this week, so they are no joke, and now neither is Golden Guardians.
Yeah, it's really good to see them bounce back a little bit after having a rough year. I mean, ending the final week with a win has to feel good heading into what's going to be a pretty long break for them to kind of figure out what they want to do heading into summer.
It was a 7-game loss streak that Golden Guardians were on up until that moment, so that has to do something for the team in terms of reinvigorating them. Crumbs did mention, though, that they beat CLG, who beat Cloud9, but Cloud9 have had a bit of a turnaround recently as well.
Yeah, so the death of C9 was over-exaggerated, I think, because people just remember the previous year. I do think that I really liked what I saw from C9 yesterday against Dignitas. As you can see, they pick pushing lanes and then they target the mid lane to make sure that Perks also has lane priority in mid. I think this is a really good, shows a really good understanding from C9 of how they win most easily, which is, again, pushing lanes. Blabber is a jungler who likes to either really hard contest his opposing jungler or be in lanes a little earlier than some of the other LCS junglers. So this supports that. I really liked what I saw from C9 yesterday, and it shows that they still know how they win best, right? So even with all the experiments and people looking down and being like, I don't know, C9, are you going to forget how you want to play? No, they didn't. They're still an insanely good team at the top of the table.
A lot of people were looking at that match between C9 and Dig for that very reason, to see what Cloud9 were able to bring to the table, and it was a W in the end. A lot are looking towards the match we have later on, though, with 100 Thieves and Team Liquid, because 100 Thieves, everyone's been trying to figure them out.
Yeah, they have been in a bit of a slump, I'd say, in the middle of the season, but they're 2-0 headed into their match versus TL, and it was against non-playoff teams to kind of get that momentum back, and now they're going up against one. But I do want to say that I think overall they look a lot better on the eye test too, regardless of opponent, like Closers being a lot more active, and Ryoma has been really good, actually. You know, he's playing the TF and the Silas so far this week, and a lot of people were kind of like, well, why are you having Ryoma in just to play these champs if he's not going to play the control mages that he's supposedly better on? But he's just outright playing better right now, and so I totally understand why, you know, they had put him in, and it's kind of paying dividends already. So I'm excited to see if they can keep kind of leveling up now going against Team Liquid.
I really like the Silas pick for him too. They've used it twice. In this game, it was really great because of the first 3 picks that were locked in on blue side. So I really like the way that Ryoma is playing, and regardless of what happens to 100 Thieves, I hope he doesn't draw too much criticism simply for starting, because I think he's been performing really well.
Yeah, and whether it was a Silas from Ryoma or something else that went on so far this past week, let's go ahead and find out if any of yesterday's standouts did make their way up the Samsung SSD Fast 5 leaderboards. A quick reminder, though, for everybody watching, that these stats that we are seeing on our screen are average fastest time. So all players in all roles can continue to climb the rankings while they zoom through the rift after recent changes.
Look at Turtle surging up there with on last week. So I'm assuming that's from, obviously we already touched upon it, CLG have had some strong performances outside of their loss yesterday. So it's cool to see Turtle, like he's been around for so long. I remember watching him in Season 2 regionals. So, you know, it's cool to see him back up on this leaderboard.
I have to give a shout out to Jose Dioto as well. I know he's a favorite of both Crumbs and I, and good to see him up in second place now.
And Alfari too, right? Almost a minute above Fake God as an average fastest CS. That is actually really impressive. Now, you get help from the jungle, but he delivers wins afterwards. So the more you help Alfari, the more he helps you win.
All right, mention of one of our longest standing players in the league and two of our newest ones. Now, we are obviously spending a lot of time looking forward this weekend towards that midseason showdown playoffs, yay! But it only feels right for us to take a look back at all that we have shared together this spring. Get your gel, pens, and highlighters at the ready because it's time for the 2021 edition of the LCS Spring Yearbook. Let's jump into some superlatives. See, I got my pens and everything. First one on the deck, it's going to be biggest surprise team, and we've got Dignitas.
I think it has to be Dignitas pretty easily. This was a team that was generally getting power ranked around 8th by pretty much everyone in the community, myself included. And then they rose to the top of the tables pretty quickly through the LCS spring regular season, and everyone started trying to say, oh, they're gonna fall, it's just a temporary thing at the start of the split, and then they kept winning, and after that, you know, people started shifting the goalposts to be like, okay, well, they're not a title contender, and they couldn't just admit that this team was playing well. And so that's why I think, you know, they're the biggest surprise, that people had to start shifting their goalposts and their argument around Dignitas, and that's pretty much clearly the biggest surprise from this split.
I think that surprise comes from the fact that you got so many players on that roster that nobody wanted to pick up, and suddenly you put them all together and they're hitting the same peak at the same time. They're looking really good as a unit, and all 5 are NA, so if you love those memes, Dig's the team for you.
Yeah, NA Pride right at the center of Dignitas. All Dig fans here on the desk. Our next one, it feels like it's just for you, Emily. We've got Best New Kid, and this award's going over to Sword Art.
Yeah, so Sword Art, the transfer student from LPL, LMS, it's kind of one of those cheater things where LPL highlights like the rookie and it's Peanut who just came to LPL or something like that. But I do think Sword Art, he had a little bit of a slower start this year when TSM were struggling. I think over the past few weeks, you've really seen the value that he brings to a team. Not only is he just kind of like a cheery mood maker, he's also an incredible playmaker, especially out of lane and in some of these team fights. So I'm happy to see him doing well and the community embracing him a little bit more.
I want to give a tip of the hat to Jose Dioto as well. Mechanically, he's one of the best junglers in the league. And if Fly doesn't find a way to win playing around him, I wouldn't be surprised if the offseason somebody makes moves to incorporate him into their own plans.
Somebody that I think a lot are looking to be a mainstay here in the LCS, both of these players that we have enjoyed. Our next award, it is going to be Most Creative, and this is going over to C9's Yasuo draft that we saw not long ago.
Yeah, so by now we've seen a lot more creativity. This is a week 4 composition, but this is a timeless Bronzodia comp that Cloud9 as a team is known for. The best thing is how easy it is to play. You press R, you delete everybody, you can play with your own friends at home. As for Cloud9, it actually highlights their individual strengths. You actually have Yasuo for perks, which is a really good pick for him. And then with all the diving champions and how good they are at executing quickly on these team fights, it works for them, and it's always worked for C9.
Yeah, it's so innovative. It goes back around to the bottom of the ELO ladder where everyone's playing these prep archives down in bronze. It's genius.
A comp for everybody to enjoy. Keeping it on the gameplay a bit, though, we do have Best Penta of 2021, many to select from at this point, and it's going to go to TSM Week 5 versus C9.
Yeah, it's been great to see LCS maybe fighting a bit more, seeing more pentakills. There were a lot that we could have included on the list. I think actually mentioning Wild Turtle earlier, Wild Turtles was another one that I wanted to shout out. But here we see Lost getting this pentakill, and the thing that's coolest about this one, I think, is that it just showcases how the entire team contributes to a pentakill in a fight. As we see, Sword Art holding that last hit for Lost so he can get in that 5th kill. This is also just kind of, again, when we talk about TSM, it's been really awesome to see this team gel together and improve week after week. So congratulations, Lost, and yeah, I'm just happy to see more pentakills in LCS, to be
well,
fair.
they're all basically from the 80 carry position, though. There is an item maybe that is contributing.
The Collector!
Collector!
Oh my, the great finisher to just finish the kills and finish out some pentas, but we all get the benefit of watching them. I do want to shift over to some more personality-based awards. This one's going to be Class Clown Zamante post-game celebrations.
Yeah, I mean, gone but not forgotten. Demonte was one of the most fun people to watch in the entire LCS, and I think everyone else needs to take notes on these win moments. Like, this is how you build a personality. I mean, it's so fun to watch, and I'm sad that we're not getting to enjoy these anymore, but, you know, he made his mark during his time here.
I love the face after the shaky win. You know, the
Yeah.
like, I don't know about that one.
You know, Hags, write all of that in the yearbook for him. I also have to give props to 100 Thieves for legit just putting a camera in his hand sometimes and saying, hey, Demonte, do your thing. Really enjoyable to see in the Heist episodes. We're talking about these endgame celebrations. There's somebody else we got to shout out. Let's go over to Best Dancer. And Neo has been popping off in more ways than one.
It's not just his dance moves on Kalista. He also has some banger reaction cams here, dancing, getting really animated. In fact, he's getting so animated sometimes that he's actually tearing the house down. Surprise! It's
like a horror movie. You know, the guy like axes through the door behind you.
Yeah, I mean, Neo, we asked you to bust a move, not bust the banner behind you. But this is exactly what we want to see from all of the players coming into the LCS, bringing out the personality we all know and love. But we have to bring it to a little bit of a different note. This is going to be class Heartbreaker. There's always one, and it's for CLG. CLG fans so familiar with the feeling.
Yeah, so as a KT Rolster fan, I'm stepping in for Primal, our resident CLG fan, to talk about CLG's The Class Heartbreaker. There are a few heartbreaking things about CLG. One, the fact that they were not able to actually have what would become their starting roster practice together for a while. But also, you know, we've talked about this several times on AD, but CLG had, you know, these really cool level ones and these really good starts to games that they would then peter out in the mid game and kind of be unable to close out several times even before they got their roster. So CLG.
They're bringing hope, though, in some games sometimes. Our last one here, it's going to be Cutest Couple, a.k.a. Best Duo. And this is Core JJ and Tactical.
Yeah, best duo in air quotes. This is not a skill thing for this split. I think there's been a number of bot lanes who have outperformed them while they're struggling a little bit. But my God, are they just so fun to watch. They are super, you know, Core JJ is just so cute off camera. And the idea that he has taken Tactical, this rookie from last year, and raised him up, mentored him throughout the course of his career so far. It's just, it's a really wholesome story, I'd say.
I think a lot can agree there. How much we were talking about Tactical coming into the LCS last year and seeing the development alongside Core JJ has been so fun. What a trip down memory lane that we have all had over these past few weeks. We are going to be stepping away, but when we return, we've got some tiebreaker scenarios, sage advice, and another round of According To. We'll see you there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to LCS Countdown, as well as the latest edition of According To with me, La Tigress. We hit up Twitch chat a little earlier on, as well as reaching out to Aframu. But right now, I do want to know what Twitter has to say. So earlier on, we awarded who we think the biggest surprise team is that we have seen this spring, but according to Twitter, which LCS team is the biggest surprise so far this season? Of course, this could be a team exceeding expectations or not performing up to standard. What are you thinking, analysts?
You got to be big, right?
Has to be
I think
big,
CLG
right?
could be a big surprise for people not living up to standards. I know people weren't very positive on them anyways, but the whatever it was, 1-8 start or whatever, maybe. But I think it's big.
Yeah, I think we all discussed it earlier.
Has to be.
I mean,
Yeah,
there
but
could be a
thinking
meme
about Twitter,
answer, right? Somebody could be memeing this, so they might just say TSM for just the sake of TSM, but okay, look at that.
Okay, 77% of the vote. All right, cool. We're aligned.
Yeah, I will say this is a very rare occasion where Twitter is actually extremely aligned with the desk, but there was also some interesting conversations around those that people felt were underperforming. Some saying CLG kind of goes on both sides because of their start and how they finished off. So yeah, interesting replies from all of those on Twitter. But rolling right along, we've got, according to Twitch chat, which team will end up winning the mid-season showdown? We already know all the 6 that are going to be in playoffs at this point.
Again, I think we should give credit to what crowdsourcing can do. I think they usually actually end up with the right response. And considering that Team Liquid has been very strong with their best-of-1 wins, and they seem to be slowly getting back on form, I think they're saying TL.
I think it's going to be C9. I think C9 fans are always in Twitch chat. I think they always, you know, like this is me trying to predict who is going to be in Twitch chat responding to things. So I'm going for C9 with the vote
I mean,
here.
Even following Crumbs' wisdom of the crowds, I would still think that Cloud9 would be the favorite. They've looked the best during the regular season. They almost beat TL in the lock-in tournament, so I think it's C9 easy.
Lot back
Watch it
in
be dig
C9.
again.
Right? Yeah,
Even there.
who's Twitch chat with? Yeah, so they're definitely on board with Cloud9, but it looks like there are quite a few for TL, TSM. Now, we did have a mention of TL here. What argument do you think is to be had, if any, from our analysts for TSM potentially taking it?
The fans are really committed. That's the argument for that vote.
Oh no.
I think they have been getting better over the course of the split. Like Sword Art, when he's playing well with Spica, gets a lot of stuff done on the map. Huni and PoE can be legitimate late game threats. Like, I can see a world where they do win. I just think that they are the dark horse of the three.
Seems to be a fair assessment there, but TSM fans, I mean, they're always here to make sure they put their votes into the chat, so props to them for their consistency in that regard. Finally, we've got, according to longtime LCS legend Aframu, what is his favorite moment in his career so far? And he's had a long one.
Winning at
that
Madison
one
Square Garden?
MSI win. Oh,
They got
Madison
second,
Square Garden
though.
is a good one too.
So there's three options. I think it would be like making MSI finals, winning Madison Square Garden, and Dark Horse beating Doublelift when he went to TSM as the grudge match with Snipsted. Dude, he talked so much smack in that post-game interview. When they won that finals, he was like, it's good to win with people. I forget what he said, but it was like people you actually enjoy playing with. I forget. It was some stuff where he was throwing shots hard.
Yeah,
I would low-key put that.
But he's aged as a person. I think he's matured. He's no longer such spiteful. There's no more grudges. These are veteran players. I think Aframu has moved beyond that and will cherish the best moments, the sweetest wins.
All right, let's see if Aframu is as positive as you all think him to be. Find out what he had as an answer to this one.
My favorite career moment definitely is tied between my win at Madison Square Garden and Mandalay Bay, but I'll probably have to go when I was on Counterlogic Gaming for Madison in 2015. Just because it was our first win, and going in, we were definitely the underdogs. Nobody really believed in us. We'd always fail previous years, and being able to get that 3-0 over TSM just felt amazing, especially being able to play at the Garden when I've always watched, basketball growing up is amazing.
I feel like that's a very fitting answer, not just because you all brought it up, but you hear stories about even one of our writers, Elias, for instance, a CLG fan, saying, I remember that moment at MSG when CLG came through on top here.
He said Mandalay was his second one, though, right? That was the 2016 spring.
That one kind of surprises me a little bit more, I think, than the Madison Square Garden. Like, I would have assumed it was Madison Square Garden and making MSI finals.
The scope of the stadiums, I think, really played into that, because that's just such a giant arena to be playing. When you have that much energy from the crowd pumping into you and you're winning, it feels amazing.
I do really appreciate the call out from you all, though, on the split up between Doublelift and Aframu. As a fan, I remember that moment and all of the trash talk afterwards and thinking, you're breaking my sphere, my mind, but in such a good way. Gotta love the moments that Aframu has brought to us here. But yeah, I mean, as far as is there anything else that you think when looking at these veterans and they're trying to reflect upon it, is it just difficult in general for them to kind of pick one singular moment out of this to really bring to the forefront?
Always winning. Always win. No matter how much you play, it's winning what matters the most. That's the sweetest moment every single time.
Got to stand with you in that one. So speaking of standings, though, let's go ahead and take a look at our current standings. Cloud9 are still sitting at the top, only one win above our three-way tie at second between 100 Thieves, Team Liquid, and TSM. Dignitas are right below them in fifth place, with Evil Geniuses already locked into sixth and that lower bracket for our mid-season showdown. Looking ahead at our schedule for the next day, though, FlyQuest face off against Dignitas in an all-important match for playoff seeding, followed by Golden Guardians taking on TSM, 100 Thieves versus Team Liquid, and even more matches until we potentially close out our day with some tiebreakers. If you are a fan of tiebreakers, you'll want Dignitas to win out against FlyQuest and Golden Guardians to beat TSM, which is the scenario for the most likely number of tiebreakers, which is 2. But hey, I'll take it. 2 is a small number, but can be big when you're adding to the number of games that we got going on. And if you do want to dig deeper into the numbers, our stats team has posted the fabled foldy sheet over on Twitter at LOL Esports Stats. So you can print out a copy to march what Mark has on your screen right there. Follow along all the statistical magic happening throughout the day. Good printing skills, Mark.
I know. That looks so pretty.
Is that a skill?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I connected it to my printer, which is probably the hardest part, is getting the printer to actually do what you want it to, but I don't know if I call that a skill.
I don't remember the last time I printed something, honestly.
Yeah, you know, you did that much more than any of us on the desk have done within probably the past year. So props to you. We got so many scenarios and so much on the line. I think that we could all use a little bit of sage advice from our resident optimist, Azale.
And now, it's time for sage advice from a literal world champion.
Well, here we are, the last week of the regular season. There's lots on the line with both playoffs and MSI qualification depending on these games. But honestly, don't worry about it. There's nothing really to be nervous about. I mean, seriously, what's the worst that could happen? Your team crashes and burns, make front page Reddit for all the wrong reasons. I mean, your team sponsors would probably pull out at that point, but I mean, no one's going to blame you if they have to sell their spot. Well, I guess you would lose your job, but you know, you'll be down in the academy toiling away for a couple of years, and who knows what could happen. Players usually make it back up. Then again, maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, point is, don't be nervous.
This has been sage advice from a literal world champion.
Yes, don't be nervous. Thank you, Azale. I think. Anyway,
I'll take that to heart.
Sure, yeah, you know, good stuff from our literal world champion over there. I'm sure that neither FlyQuest nor Dignitas, though, are too nervous going into their game. You know, there's a lot for them to consider. Crumbs, if you are Dignitas, though, how are you feeling coming into this matchup after the weekend that they've had thus far?
They had a really tough weekend. Now, Dignitas had to face off against both lock-in finalists, and they got bodied by both of them. And if that wasn't enough, the bans both teams threw at them seemed to really hit a nerve. Like we heard from Kadrill, without the Alistar, they really struggled. They most likely put most of their practice in these two matches since they legitimately had a shot at first place. Now, facing potential dropping into the lower bracket, they need to stay calm and not be phased by the two losses and bring home one more win against Fly, which is a much weaker team and one that is not in the playoff race.
Still, though, I think they have to give some respect to FlyQuest because you saw how hard FlyQuest made 100 Thieves work just yesterday. It was a really long game, and despite, you know, FBI getting fed and all this stuff happening, it was a situation where 100 Thieves had to work really hard over the course of that game to find the wins, and I think even then, Jose Diodo wasn't playing great. So there's an opportunity for FlyQuest to play the upset right now for Dignitas if Dignitas is kind of looking past them and already looking into playoffs.
And I think it's actually really crucial that Dignitas get one of those top 4 spots, right? Because I think Dignitas is a team that could benefit really, really well from being able to get that extra practice, or not extra practice, but not have as much pressure if you have the lower bracket option, right? Because Dignitas is a team that is this really awesome mixture of 2 very experienced veterans and then 3 players who are returning to the LCS after really short stints. So, you know, like you have this really great mixture of new upcoming talent that's been performing progressively better throughout this split, and then the 2 veterans. And I think that's always a like team setup that can benefit really, really well from having that extra insurance. We've also seen Dignitas kind of experiment around some of their drafting, making the most of Dardoch's champion pool while making sure that their solo lanes had priority. Additionally, you know, Crumbs already mentioned the Kadrill call-out of the reliance on stuff like Alistar, somewhat a reliance on Skarner as well. So I think getting this top 4 is so important, which puts a lot more pressure than there normally would be on this match against FlyQuest.
So we're all on board that Dignitas really do need to go for the victory here for the sake of standings going into playoffs. But what do they need to do to get that W?
So I think if I'm Dignitas, I would attack the newcomer into the FlyQuest lineup, which is Dreams. Now, individually, he's been fine, but when you put a new support with a new bottom lane, you don't have enough time to build up that synergy. So because Neo and Afro have been so dominant, I think focusing the laning phase of FlyQuest's bottom will be a very effective strategy. You camp that lane, maybe you have globals from the Gangplank in the bot lane, and you make sure that you develop a lead down there that you can then transition into a strong mid game because you have an AD that can definitely take you over the finish line with Neo.
And I think Dignitas has been a lot more comfortable playing around bot lane too, so that's a really good call out.
Well, we're going to all have to keep our eyes on Neo and the rest of Dignitas for that one. All spring long, though, here on the broadcast, we've been holding a little competition of our own. Analysts and casters alike have recorded their predictions for all 85 matches we've had so far. That's a lot. And here is our current leaderboard. It should be noted that this is only a check-in, though. Like our teams here in the LCS, the prediction records will carry over through the summer, where we will ultimately crown a new prediction prophet. Right.
Where's Dash? Did we not include his 2-3 record at 40%?
We kicked out his 1 day of predictions.
It made the numbers look more ugly, maybe. But I would say even in the 1 day, didn't he do it just to go against the analyst desk too? And I feel like that's quite an accomplishment to still get 2 correct, though. But here on the desk, Mark, you're kind of the one reigning up there.
Yeah, because we all kept picking the same thing. So he was just like, well, screw you guys. I'm going to pick every opposite.
I'm sad. I lost my lead, though, in the last couple of days because I had a Lauren beat through most of the year, but he rallied hard.
I mean, Crumbs, you have dubbed yourself with this prophet title before. How difficult
First
do
of
you
all,
think?
hang on. I never dubbed myself, right? This title came on to me. I never chose this. It kept pushed onto me.
You dressed like Moses and made predictions.
Again, I don't schedule these. These segments happen to me. So, Mark, you're happy
that
to
you take them happily, Crumbs.
Wow. Okay.
I never got asked to dress up in a beard with a staff and a robe and make predictions.
You never grew a beard. Let's see it.
Yeah, you're literally Prophet Crumbs on Twitter, and that's like, I mean,
it's
you're
only because
owning
I
it.
can't change it. I would lose the check mark. I'm valuing the check mark more than the title.
All right. Well, anyway,
Reluctant prophet.
let's find out how good your prophet skills are for today, though, because I do want to get our last rounds of predictions in before we head into it. Was everybody on board, or Crumbs? There you are.
respect
Crumbs.
There it is.
You said that we weren't all
There it is.
3.
Yeah, of course. I think CLG, obviously, they're going to bounce back after losing to Golden Guardians. That's just the CLG way. So I think they actually will be able to come up with a win here against EG because they looked a little bit shaky. I mean, yeah, you gave Jizuka some cool picks, but honestly, it's going to take a while to incorporate those kinds of champions because no one plays with Nico right now. So I want to see CLG make one of those games that they showed against Team Liquid and C9. I think they're very capable of doing so. And if EG is not on their game, which it seems like they weren't yesterday, then I think CLG will get the dub.
Be a lot of fun seeing what comps those two teams bring to the table. As far as game number 1, though, let's go ahead and send things over to Freak and Kobe for the call.